everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Monday nights, we're back in action. All three of us, some of us were regular, some of us with brand new equipment over here. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin in Chicago. Pretty nice outside, actually. After some miserable days, we were out on Saturday, and yikes, it got hot once the sun came out and stuff like that. But it's decent day out there today. Gally is with us. Gally, what's happening?
Rain, effing rain.
Really?
That's what's happening. Yeah, we've had thunderstorms all afternoon, so it made my 3-hour ride home, or my hour-and-a-half ride home, a good 2.5 to almost 3-hour ride home. Love it, because people can't drive in the rain. They can't drive in the snow. Hell, they can't drive when it's sunny out. But today they decided they really couldn't drive in torrential downpours. I mean, to be fair, it was like sideways raining where it like blows your car around on a 3-lane highway. So I'm kind of appreciative that people weren't driving fast, but they could have drove a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, like the rain, we've had a lot over the last week, and you would think, like it's miserable out. You're like, oh, good, it's raining. Tomorrow will be nice. And you go out the next day, it's like a freaking jungle out there. It was so goddamn humid. But with us is Bickler, who looks like he's about to stream gaming. The moment we go off on air over here, he's going to get on Red Dead Redemption or something and get online. What's happening?
I am just day by day morphing into my 15-year-old, except for the additional responsibilities that I keep getting that I don't want. No, it's weather report here it's just the ball sack. It's raining off and on, and the humidity is 74%. It's disgusting.
Nice. Well, just hang in there, people. It's mid-July. I hope when we are in New York, because we were in New York one summer once, and it was a torture session, like literally like 90s. We were like running into random stores that we have no business being in just because they had AC, and you had to just go to a store every 4 or 5 stores just to be able to survive. So, well, mind you, we're going to be inside for 24 hours. It's more of what is Angie going to do in that heat if it's ridiculously hot? But I know what you guys are going to do. I should bring a lot of trivia for 24 hours. There should be a lot of trivia on there, right? You would think. I'll bring some extra questions. But this week's question, and man, there's a lot
of... It's a fundraiser, Timuchin, so it's actually not allowed to have trivia.
It's a fundraiser.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun.
Yep.
Well,
You're not raising any fun if you bring trivia for the whole 24 hours. I'm just making sure that's clear.
You should just make the 24th hour just trivia.
Dude, that would be crazy. It would be like BJ working overtime. This week's question is, so Sunday's opponent, Preston North End, was one of the original 12 founding clubs that formed the Football League back in 1888. I remember it like yesterday, kids. Meanwhile, Dora says, try Arizona in July. I hear it's dry heat, though. Whatever the hell that means. Okay, so of the other 11 founding Football League clubs, name the 4 that will be in the Premier League this season.
We're going to do the rotating thing. We're going to do the rotating thing where we go back and forth, Bickler, because there's no chance both of us are getting 4 of these.
There's a lot of bonuses, too.
So I'll guess Sunderland.
I don't know. I'm gonna just go with the easy, low-hanging fruit. Liverpool is not one of them because they were started shortly after, and Everton is older.
I thought you were going to go like Steven Gerrard.
No, well, Steven Gerrard's great grandfather, and he was a fan of Everton. No, we're not going to open that can of worms. Everton is going to be my first guess.
Everton is correct. I should have installed this new equipment so I can put like a sound anytime Bickler answers something. Bickler, your turn again. Back to you.
So nobody liked my Sunderland answer.
I'm pretty sure that was a hint that it was wrong.
We loved it. It was just wrong.
Oh my god, dude! I need to look and see who's even in this year. I'll go. My next guess will be Newcastle. I don't think it's right, but I'll do Newcastle.
Gally, back to you. Hands on the buzzer.
I'm gonna guess because Sunderland was wrong. and my bet is the numbers changed, and it can't be the other one. I'm going to go Burnley.
Burnley is correct. Back to you, Bickler.
So we've got, what do we have? Burnley, Everton. Who else?
Exactly. That's your question.
Wait. So, okay. I'm just thinking of old teams currently in the league. Aston Villa.
Villa is correct. And the last one?
I think I saw it in the chat. I was going to guess it just randomly because they're in that like area around Villa and stuff in the Midlands, and that seems to be where these oldest clubs are. Is it Wolves?
Yes, it is. Yes,
I kept wanting to say Blackburn, but
all listed in
whatever.
there. I mean, okay.
I think Blackburn isn't Blackburn one of them though. I almost feel like Blackburn is.
Yeah, Blackburn is, but they're not in the.
Right. No, but
yes,
that was where Paul's like, I still want to say Blackburn, but he's just wishing Blackburn was in the Premier League because we know who the 3 promoted teams are.
Yeah.
Leeds, Burnley, and Sunderland.
But I think it is a lot of those Midland teams. I think like Bolton was one of them too, right? Like I think it's got to be like.
I think Bolton is Derby.
Probably.
Derby is the one. I'll give you these because this will take forever. Otherwise, Stoke City and West Bromwich Albion is on there, who are in EFL. Bolton Wanderers is in League One. Notts County is League Two. And one team is no longer. Which one is it? Cersei just threw it out there for you guys. Accrington has been dissolved.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Who's Accrington Stanley?
Well, yeah,
big commercial.
No, that's right. Yes.
I was thinking of Bury that dissolved.
Oh no, like I think Accrington dissolved and they became, you know what I mean, like because this is back in like 1896, my younger days, my high school days, basically. So 1896 is when that happened. But yes, so Preston North End game, we'll probably spend most of our time kind of like talking about that. If you're watching us live right now, by the way, on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Help us out over there. I always forget to say it, but it does go a long way because once you guys hit all the thumbs up, we have several live viewers right now. Some poor soul is suddenly going to be exposed to this in their timeline. They're not going to know what hit him. So do help us out. Hit the thumbs up. We'll get to the game. Honestly, man, I was, we're talking with Mateusz this morning as well. That was rough. That was really, really tough. A lot of tears were shed. I did not think I would take it this hard, Gally, because we talked about, the match part was fine. I didn't think about during the match part, but the pre and post were really, really tough emotionally, partially because of the way it was done in the pre-match. With the singing and all that kind of stuff, and then bringing out the flowers. That's when I broke down when the dude came up with the flowers and put it up there and stood. And I was like, that's when I lost it. And then like just overall, but in the post match, just seeing those guys feeling their pain a little bit is what made it painful.
Yeah, so obviously, full disclosure, Bickler and I did the watch along, and thank you to any of the viewers that are in the comments or chat section now that were with us on Sunday, and thank you to Sir Z for doing the show with Paul and I. Because it's difficult to do a show, listen to each other, you can't really listen to the audio. So in some ways, the viewers were saved from watching me cry. My wife and dog, on the other hand, were not saved from it when I decided that to do this podcast tonight. I was going to have to go back before the show an hour ago and watch the pre and post match. And I can understand where you're coming from. I'll say this, the pre-match, it got me, but I think because I kind of had a feeling for what was happening on the screen and not listening to it at the time live, I knew about the flower tribute. I knew that the players came out. I didn't know until I listened that was one of the wives of one of the Preston players who sang. That was one of their wives.
I was unaware. Well, kudos to him, I guess.
And I thought she did a great job. And I thought, first of all, I think we should give Preston North End an amazing amount of credit for hosting what must have been a really difficult day and doing a great job. Like, we joke about people covering themselves in glory. I think Preston North End and their supporters covered themselves in glory. But I did get very, very choked up at the end. And I think it was the mindset of seeing all those players, Virgil bring them all away to the away supporters and line up like they did. We're used to them lining up like that during like special moments to share with the supporters where they're like staring at each other. And we saw it after the Spurs match. We saw it after the Palace match. We saw it in some ways with the You'll Never Walk Alone after the comeback against Barcelona.
Yeah.
But this was different. This was them sharing in the pain and also sharing in the moment. And the look on their faces, I'm sure we'll get to some of the players, but, you know, Robbo, Nunez, Curtis Jones having to walk away from it, just really being, you know, some of the coaches and some of the staff and just full out tears. Like, you just could tell that it took a lot out of them to play that football match. And we'll talk about the match, but it took even more out of them to have that moment. But I do feel like, I said it on the watch long, I feel like this was step one in like a 50-step program of firsts that they had to check off. And they checked this one off. And there's going to be a lot more to come. But I'm just so happy they played the match. I'm happy I got to watch it. It made me feel great. And I'm hoping it will help make each match a little easier for them, for the supporters, for the staff, and for all of us watching on TV.
Yeah, I mean, it was very well done, and I kind of mentioned this morning. I think compared to anywhere I've been and lived in and watched and stuff like that, they do this thing best over there in England, I have to say. I mean, you know, we've had some moment of silences and stuff like that here, and I mean, forget about, you know, hearing somebody cough. You could hear somebody like sniffle. It was that freaking quiet over there. You rarely get that quiet. I thought it was like, I mean, the whole thing was extremely well done. Dara says maybe, like, Dara was shocked that I lost it. I did lose it. Not totally lost it, but it was out there. I don't want to know what. I'm almost afraid to ask what he does. Dara is like Dexter over here. I mean, here's my thing, Bickler. I personally, I know. I mean, we talked about a lot about, you know, like how we deal with this and, you know, like what brings us, you know, in our lives and stuff last week. I find it really hard when I'm controlling my emotions, but the moments I see somebody who can't, that's when, you know, the doors open. And I think that's basically what happened where, I mean, even in like I say, like in my dad's funeral, I was trying to be the tough guy and holding it. But then you look and you see like his childhood friends just bawling like a 4-year-old, like literally. And then there's no way to hold it then. Like I can't hold it, obviously. I don't know if it's like a free for all. He's like, he's not holding it either. Let me get it out. I don't know what it is. But the moment I saw, like, you see the emotions, especially in the post match, you see the emotions of like Van Dijk and stuff. These guys were used to, right? We won't know them personally, but we know them. We know their normal demeanor. We know how they look normally. We know how they act normally. So when you see that, I don't know, you felt the pain, you see like the watery eyes, and that's kind of like why I kind of lost it in the post-match as well.
Yeah, I'm with Gally where we, you know, doing the live watch along, we were a little bit insulated from some of the emotion in terms of how raw it is, but, you know, we had to go back and watch this thing. I think the thing that stood out to me was sort of how this first half, the thing that really impacted me was just seeing the stadium, the supporters. Like that was the emotional part to me, is seeing the sort of the emotion throughout the crowd, what it meant to these supporters to be in here in this moment. And then the post match, to me, it was all about the players. And I mean, I think all uniquely sort of react differently to different players, which I think is interesting. For me, the one that like just sends me every time is Darwin. I just think that even when he's scoring goals in this game in particular, no matter what he did, he seems like he's just carrying so much weight in that face. Like you can see just the grief inside just on his face in general. I think one of the things that I'm going to take away from this and always remember is that, you know, we have been pretty critical, historically speaking, of Virgil's leadership ability and whether he was okay to wear this armband. Obviously, we thought he grew into that last year.
Yeah.
I think the way that he's handled this has been unbelievable to me. To watch him basically physically put his arm around players and like almost like lead them physically through this when some of them don't think they can, has been super impressive. It's moved me just to see. I think he has almost taken this father figure role within this squad, which I didn't know that he had in him. And that's been just, there's been a silver lining. It's been moments like that for me.
I think part of that is, I mean, it's almost like I have to keep reminding myself that he has a family and he has kids and stuff like that. I don't know, because like he's constantly going around like this model kind of a thing, like hair perfect and everything. And everybody's like, you know, after him, I always forget that he's actually a dad. But we kind of, I think it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit last week, where I like mentioned it. And I think we talked about it, Gally, in terms of like for some of these kids, and they are kids. I mean, heck, you know, for me, I would even consider Van Dijk a kid, you know, I mean, age-wise kind of a deal. So, but for some of these kids, this is their first, this could possibly be the first time they lost somebody important in their life and stuff. Like in Nunez's case, I know he had family loss at the same time, and I'm sure that's like compounding, and he's a young man himself. But like when you think of a guy like Bradley, Curtis Jones and stuff like that, I mean, these guys might have lost like a great grandmother or something like that, but nothing like this where they lost somebody that close to them. I hate to say it, as you age, you start losing high school friends, college friends and stuff like that, right? Like, so every one of them almost like chips away at you and you don't get as emotional. Like Dara says, by the way, Dara's a major crimes detective, so make sure do not reveal your addresses so he's not knocking on our doors. But I mean, it's I think you kind of build a bit more strength to it, Gally. It feels like probably some of these guys do not have that, and that's why they need a guy like Van Dijk and even like Robertson and stuff like that. As much as they're affected, they got to be the ones to kind of like drag these guys across.
Yeah, I think sometimes when it comes to loss, some people handle it. Everybody handles these things differently, which is what we've been talking about trying to create space for everyone, right? For how they're grieving, because nobody grieves the same. And I don't know if it's age, because I know you didn't mean it that way, because I would have thought the same thing, but I only remembered, so I quickly Googled it. Connor Bradley's dad actually died last season.
Oh shit, that's right.
And,
that's right.
No, but this is it's a great point actually, because you never know which person might be the veteran of life and which person is the veteran of an experience. Like,
yes,
for all we know, someone might have lost a sister when they were young and they've dealt with this for 15 years of ongoing, like, so it's just one of those, like, you never know the level of the person you're meeting. I do think there's a lot to this though, about how young these men are and how young they are in their maturation process. And you know, we talk about footballers and the psychology. We don't often talk about the things that they're catered to and what things that they're kind of coddled with. I mean, some of these kids have been in really great living environments since they were teenagers. Some of these kids have been in homes with other families that were taking care of them while they lived abroad and playing for other clubs. Like, they've had, by many accounts, not all of them, a lot offered to them early in life. And I think sometimes when you have so much quality in your life, these hard moments almost become tougher to understand than if maybe they grew up like you or me, living in random countries and moving around and going to different places. And I think life experience can only be gained by going through moments like this. And you don't wish this on anyone, but you shared a story last week. I know that we lost an owner of the company that I worked for years ago, and this was a guy who was like bigger than the world, and he meant so much to us. So in a lot of ways, we've had those experiences. This might be the first person outside of their family that they truly cared about that they had to bury. And I think sometimes it's that unidentifiable hurt that happens when you don't expect it. And until you lose a friend or a coworker, some people don't even know how that feeling will be. You kind of understand what it'll be like to lose your grandma. I've been saying I love you to you every time I hang up the phone or whatever. All of my life, you've been there in this constant. This person came in for a fleet moment of time, but shared in memories. And I think we see that as these guys are all going through this. And when I say these guys, I mean the men, the women, the supporters, the people at the club, but most importantly, the people who spent day to day with them, which were the staff at Liverpool Football Club, his coaches, and of course, most importantly, his teammates.
Yeah, and I was saying it last week. I mean, we kind of like feel the pain ourselves as fans, but also, I mean, in some ways, those losses, like, Bradley's loss, this is something that kind of brings that back too. Like, if you have like a recent loss, and I think that's like Nunez's scenario, for example, because you kind of take this loss, reflect it on yourself, makes you remember of another loss. And so it's kind of like that's why everybody is going to be slightly different and probably going to need something different to kind of like walk them through. In some ways, this was a good step one, going back to what you're saying, Gally. I mean, it felt probably the most normal when they were just playing, as opposed to all the pre and the post and, the warm up and all that kind of stuff. One thing we talked about last week, Bickler, and I don't know, like, if your opinion has changed, or not, maybe the entire opinion has changed, but if you have like a different perspective now, watching throughout this week that, the entire team going there and watching some interactions and listening to some of the things that Slot is saying, like he was talking about basically, like, if you're not ready to practice, you're not ready to practice and stuff. Kind of like, I just felt in some ways, because we talked about Klopp being maybe his strength being like the arm around the shoulder kind of thing. I almost got the sense that in some ways, maybe it is better to have a guy like Slot who now we see can do that, but can still keep his head and the overall over emotion out of things at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Onslaught is definitely more of an emotionally neutral, like just human in general, right? I think he operates in that area a little bit more comfortably than Jurgen did. I do think, like, as a natural side effect of that, or like byproduct of that, he's better at giving people space, right?
Yeah.
I think that, like, I think there'll be a natural understanding that he's going to allow these players to grieve how they need to grieve. But I also think that I think that Arne Slot is also very businesslike. So when it comes down to this squad and this team performing throughout the season, I think that he'll sort of evolve this team and put his best 11 out there, regardless of who's, where on their journey with the grief. So I do agree, though. I mean, I think he's handled this incredibly well. The quote that you're talking about was a great one, was kind of an all-timer. But yeah, I can't imagine being a manager and being in this position.
Yeah.
It has to be so incredibly hard from all fronts. And I think he's handled it with a lot of grace.
I mean, here's the thing. We talked about it last week, and as insensitive as it is, football goes on, life goes on, and these guys have to do their work and do all that kind of stuff. One thing I was thinking of is I was watching the game, actually, and that's the weird thing, right? Like, as you watch the game now, I mean, obviously you look at, like, tactical things and performance things and stuff like that. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, like, if you are the powers that be, Gally, when you look at, for example, your left back situation, right? If you were kind of on the undecided, or you were leaning one way or the other and stuff like that, does a situation like this, do you think, makes them change their decision making a little bit and say, hey, you know what? We need a guy like Robertson here right now more than we did 2 months ago?
Yes and no. My yes portion of it is, from a leadership standpoint, you probably do anyways, because you're going to have a lot of change and a lot of upheaval, and we've talked a lot about that. And I think when you do that, you want to have a veteran presence. I think you also probably, we'll get to the performance on the pitch, but from the 45-minute cameo you saw at Kirkes, you could see a lot of really good positives about what he's going to bring to the side. You also could see some things that he could use learning from Andy Robertson on the training pitch day in and day out about what it takes to be a great Liverpool left back and how to do this job here and play in this city. My only caveat to that is I wonder in some ways if deep down, like, we've all questioned where Robertson head is, if he really believes he's a backup. And he looked to me like a guy who was really struggling mentally and physically with having to play yesterday. And I think that's because of how close he was to Jota. I think this might take him a longer. And I just wonder if it ends up being
almost
Robertson,
like make him say, I want to be here, even though, because we talked about it. Like, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to add to the question so you can answer both. Like, we
that's where I
said
was
he
going.
probably wants to go somewhere where he starts. Will he make it, like, change his mind and say there are things more important and I need these people right now as much as they need me?
I think it absolutely could if that's where his mind goes to. I just wonder if he gets to a point where he says, it's hard enough to envision being a backup at this football club and living in Andy Robertson's competitive head, but doing that with some demons and the reminders all around me everywhere, like, is a new challenge what Andy Robertson needs more than anything to help him have the best year he can leading into a World Cup season to have. And I'm not talking about playing. I mean, mentally in a good place. Like, some people deal with saying, I want to buckle in and I want to be here. I think some people say, hey, this tragic thing happened. It impacts me greatly. And the best thing for me right now is a clear mind and a clear challenge. I'm not saying that's what it is, or that's what we saw yesterday, or his response. But I guess my thing is I've known people who couldn't go back to the place in which a bad accident they were involved in, or couldn't, not because they didn't care about the people involved, but because they couldn't be around it anymore. I know people who have switched schools. I could see similar things happening to a man who is not only at the precipice of this huge emotional event, but also at a crossroads in his career. One that, let's be real, he did not want to give up the idea of being the number one left back at Liverpool Football Club. The club made that decision for him this summer. And it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. It'll be surprising. I think next 2 weeks will tell us everything about the outgoings, in my opinion. I don't expect Andy to leave, but if it came out that he left and it was kind of his accord, I also wouldn't begrudge him.
I could see that. I think some people use tragedy
on.
as an opportunity to start anew. Like, I could totally see that.
I think that more depends on, like, that aspect of it, Bickler, probably is more reliant on Robertson, because I understand Galley's point,
sure,
where he can be like, yeah, let me go somewhere else.
It's going to be completely down to how he grieves. 100%.
Yeah, but he might be like, we talked about this last week. Like, we talked about ourselves in Discord. It's easier to grieve when the grief is shared amongst other people. The powers that be, do you think they look at this at all and say, like if they were going to get we're going to get more for Robertson, are they like, hey, his presence right now is a lot more valuable, and they would make their decision making in terms of keeping Robertson over Costas? This is just not me wishful thinking. By
no, I would think so. I would think so, Tim. Right, but I don't know that it's related to what's going on with Jota as much as it has to do with the fact that you've got a new kid in here that probably needs some mentorship, not only in terms of the city but the system. Like, this is what we wanted when Soboslai came in from Henderson, and Henderson decided to take the bag and bounce. Right, like I think it's more about the new kids coming in than it is about anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is like a tough situation for everybody involved, and I think it does. And going back to what you're saying, Gally, I don't think you can hold anything against anyone in a moment like this. We talked about this last week, how people grieve and stuff. And I think, when Slaw was talking about that, I was really, really impressed with that. I saw a reel first, and I watched the interview that was aired like right before the game. But like him talking about, like, people not knowing, like, do we laugh? Do we cry? Like, what are we doing here? And stuff like that. And, because I can really relate to that. And I thought, I was like, we have the right guy. Like, when I listened to that, my initial thought was like, we have the right guy to address this kind of a deal. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be an ongoing thing, kind of like what you were saying earlier, Gally, that, I'm like, it's going to be the first game at Anfield. It's going to be different scenarios. So these guys will go through that. And really, the season will probably be determined. I think we were talking about in the morning show, somebody in the chat, a couple of people in the chat were talking about, it will probably define how the season goes, is how they approach and how well they'll deal with it and stuff like that. But let's go to the match itself. 1 is preseason. 2 is the first preseason. 3, there's all this emotion behind the Galley. So I don't know how much stock we would normally put into it, leave alone all the, like, everything that's going around this game. But if you gave me just one, what was your biggest takeaway from the game?
My biggest takeaway is that, well, first of all,
in terms of player performance, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say the first thing, and my first and most lasting takeaway is that fucking goalkeeper is bigger than I thought he was. He looks like Jolly the Green Giant. He's 7 feet
It's
tall.
huge.
When he came out to punch that ball, I made a comment that I thought he came close. It was Gravenberch. I thought he came close to punching Neone in the face. And if he had connected, I think the kid would have died on the pitch. And I'm not making fun of players dying, but that was literally like, it looked like a car crash when he came out for that punch. He also was better in some ways with his distribution than I think he was made out to be. I think there was something in that. Like, I think he was trying to show off a little bit with distribution because he was trying to show people like, hey, I can play a little bit with my feet. I thought he was good. He didn't have a lot to do, but I thought he commanded his box and he seemed to be vocal with his defenders, which was nice to see. I think if it's a tale of two halves for me, the first half came down to the young kids playing well and not looking out of place. And I think that starts with the Rio kid. I thought he was really good. There are a couple moments, I'm sure, you were yelling at him to pass. He had a little Diaz in him, but he also made things happen. And at the start of the match, they were putting one defender on him. By the end of the first half, they were rolling 2 and sometimes 3. And you saw it on the goal because nobody can cover Soboslai because everybody has shifted to his side of the pitch. And I think that is a really, really, really exciting thing.
I think with Rio, I did say a couple of times, I'm like, this is what he has to do better. But I almost felt he's a 16-year-old kid that was thrown out there and he was told, do your thing. Like, do what's natural, do what you normally do. I don't think he was expected. And honestly, a couple of the things he did, I was talking about this morning, if he does that in a meaningful game, I can see Mo going all the way from the right side to the left side to slap him and go back. But I think in this match, it was just like, whatever, like do your thing. Everybody's doing their thing, especially for like the young kids and stuff like that. I mean, my takeaway was Kirkaz. I thought when I watched him like over the entire match, when we're talking the match, I was like, yeah, we got something here. I mean, his old Pitbull attitude, it's a young Robertson that seems even faster and stronger than that young Robertson was. And he has that Robertson Pitbull attitude to go with it. So that was probably like my biggest takeaway in terms of like a performance that I was like, yes, we got something over here. If you gave me one Bickler, what do you have?
I think my one takeaway is that you can put whoever you want on the pitch if you have the holy trinity of Soboslai, Gravenberch, and Salah sitting there. Like, because to me, like, I was just impressed that the first half had that much cohesion. Like, for a first game of a preseason with the starting back line, that's a couple of kids and Simicus. And yeah, you got Neone in midfield, for Christ's sake. Like, I just like, you got a lot of things where you're like, wow, that in theory on paper should not work. And I was pretty impressed with that first half in general. And obviously I'd say like 85% of that cohesion was really coming through those sort of senior players. But
I thought Bradley was really good in the first half too. Got overlooked because the two kids were so good. And I thought Bradley was really good, but I think because people were so excited to see Frimpong in the second half, they kind of forgot that the right back we had, who defends like a right back, really played well. And to Paul's point too, he said it on the watch long, the Stevenson kid for getting thrown out there out of position to play center back did a really, really good job. And he might be fighting for his spot at the club. I didn't realize he's out of contract in like 2 months. So they have to make a decision to give him a new deal or send him out or sell him.
We saw him last preseason, and I'm pretty sure we were like, that does not look very hot when he was playing in his natural position. So even with that
left back, right?
I could have sworn he played left back as well. We were talking about it this morning, and somebody in the comments said right back, but I could have sworn last year in the preseason he played on the left, and that could have been because we didn't have somebody or something like that as well. Maybe like Robo.
Well, they just didn't want to play Costas.
Or that, yeah. Anything like Costas, they were like, kids, why don't you go out there? Yeah, I thought he did well as a center back playing out of position. Bickler, if we just did the young kids though, watching their performance, and I'm not putting Bradley in that equation because I feel like he's already been promoted. But when you look at Neone, Rio, Nalo, which I have forewarned you guys about Nalo before, Stevenson, do you see any of these kids getting meaningful minutes sometime down the road this season?
I think the only one that I can see getting meaningful minutes out of truly the kids, I think Doak has got one foot out the door personally. I think he's likely going to get moved. The Ngamoa kid is unreal. I think, like we talked about this, I think like he's got habits that need to be ironed out, and those habits are caused by what happens when you're so much fucking better than the kids that you play with.
Yeah.
And like, because at the academy, he just literally toys with people. You watch, like, you can see the footage of him he's like, honestly, if I was a coach, I'd probably be a little bit upset with it just because it's just like so clear that he just is doing whatever he wants out there. So, you know, that's got to get ironed out because he's going to get smashed the Prem doing that. But like, if you look at, I mean, 13 of 14 passing, wasn't dispossessed one time, created multiple opportunities,
First goal,
100% successful dribbles, like 50% on accurate long ball. Like the statistics are pretty amazing when you actually look at it in totality. Because I expected to see him, you know, have gotten dispossessed here a couple of times at least. But yeah, it was just an impressive first half in general from that kid, and he's only going to get better. I hope we do the right thing, and I hope that he starts playing with the senior academy players more, and then he gets a look into the first 11 because I think he's better. I think he's at the level right now where he's going to develop playing with first 11, starting 11 like that. He's going to develop with this first team right now versus being down at the academy level.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, you can kind of tell, like, yeah, he's very used to, and I've seen him in, like, you know, U21 games and stuff, like he's used to diving into like 2-3 guys and coming up the other side. Right. And I think, you know, he will adjust the game. And like I say, when he was thrown out there, I think all these young kids are like, go do your thing. I mean, to me, I see Neoni, if anybody, getting a lot more minutes this year because it looks like he got bigger. We were talking about with Mateta this morning. He looked the same size as Gravenberg at times because even the commentator misspoke and said it was like it was Neoni and stuff. So, and what I like about him, he does still lack a little physically, but I really like how that kid reads the game and knows where everybody is at all times. So he can move the ball fast. He doesn't get caught on the ball and stuff like that. But do you see any of those young guys?
What do you guys think Neoni's position is?
Well, I was going to say, I think he almost probably in this side, he probably takes on the role of probably being Gravenberch's, like he's Gravenberch's deputy. But the problem there is that's probably Jones's job in this setup. And I thought Jones was actually really good in the second half. You know, for me,
I think his natural position is attacking mid, but you're saying within this formation, he is probably most suited for that, right?
Well, I want to see what they do when they have Wirtz playing in this side, because I just don't know. Is it going to look like what we saw again on Saturday or Sunday? Is it going to look different? Is he going to play the false nine? If you ask me right now, what young Liverpool player has the best chance to take the step forward into the side, I'd almost argue the kid who didn't play yesterday and who's still rehabbing an injury. I think if they decide not to loan Dan's out and they only buy one attacker, I think there's a world where the Dan's kid is the sixth attacker in this side, playing cup competitions and break glass, bring in striker from bench, because I think he's shown us in a microcosm. He understands the one thing you have to do, which is get in positions to score goals, as we saw in that first goal that he scored at Anfield. He just makes the run. He follows. He tracks the bad shot. Like, this might come back to the whole does Chiesa stay or go thing. Like, because if Dan's has a shot at winning the sixth attacker job, I could see that happening, and then I could see him getting the most minutes. But the truth is, I don't think any of them are getting many minutes, which is kind of like the Arne Slot answer to your question.
Yeah,
which kid? Right. None of them.
Here's my thing. I think, you know, we talked about this about last preseason, right? You know, watching the last preseason, if you didn't know any better, you'd be like, oh, he really likes Sepp. He's going to play Carvalho on the left, I think. And, you know, like if you watch preseason and try to come up with guesses from what he's doing, you will be dead wrong. So in a lot of cases, I mean, I don't know what you think, Bickler, but my take is that, you know, we already know who's staying and who's leaving. and whatever they do out there, especially in games like this where it's a lot more emotionally charged than technically charged. It doesn't matter what they do out there. To me, if there is anybody, it is probably Chiesa, just because of obviously, like needing one more attacker now. Do you think his performance is going to impact anything at all? Because we were talking about it this morning. I can't remember who it was, but someone in the audience was saying, that in a game like this, if Chiesa is going to make a case for himself, you want him to really be like, damn, he was good today against Preston. I know it's the first preseason and all that kind of stuff, but, he did his running, he did some of his stuff, but do you think he's actually auditioning, or none of these guys are really auditioning?
Yeah, I think there's a world where Chiesa could absolutely stay by default, just from a number standpoint, right? I mean, we were talking about, if Darwin goes, and you're trying to get rid of Chiesa, you're in a world where you could lose for your front six. Like, how do you replace that? Like, or the answer is, should you try to replace that? And like, the answer is probably no, right? So like, I think the problem and where this gets tricky with Chiesa is like, one of the things that made Jota so special is that you could sit Jota for 2 weeks, plug him into a match, and he'll go find a game winner. I think that Chiesa is very much a rhythm player. And I think that he needs to have some sort of sustained rhythm and minutes to be able to do that. I mean, you just see him come into the first half and like, he has that breakaway one-on-one with the keeper. And the first thing he does is 2 super heavy touches, right? Yep. Like, which is just an indicator of you haven't knocked the rust out yet. So like, I think to me, there's got to be some sort of game plan to sort of find a role for him, and a role that is consistent and sustainable for him to at least get some juice out of that. And like, I hope we do, because like he does do, I mean, we were talking about during the watch along, he was like pressing his ass off. Like he was running, he was like avoiding good spaces for people to run in behind. Like he was tracking balls, like he was winning second balls in dangerous spots. He was doing those things you really want an attacker to do. So, the effort's there, and we all know this is a player that, we talked a couple of years about was one of, if not the best attacker in that tournament. So we know it's there. We just have to unlock it.
Yeah, if anything, I mean, I see a lot of people, and I had to say it's when he was taking that free kick, I was like, man, some part of me says, I hope this doesn't go in when Nunez was taking that free kick, because I'm like, I'm going to deal with weeks of like, we should give him a couple more seasons. I mean, there are a lot of people giving more seasons to Nunez and not as many seasons, and want to be like Dara over there in the comments, want to be one and done with Chiesa. I feel like, I mean, aside from the ridiculous running he was doing pressing wise, he actually does it at smart angles, Gally, compared to how like Nunez goes about it. But I just feel like, especially now, and going back to what Dickler is saying, because you don't probably want as many changes, it almost makes a little bit of sense that if you see something there, you might want to actually hang on to him. But I keep going back to, then why the heck did he not play at all at the end of last season? That's the only thing that says, yeah, he's probably...
He didn't play anyone.
Yeah.
He didn't play anyone at the end of last season. As soon as we were eliminated by PSG, he played.
Okay, like Nunez got more minutes, whereas we felt that Nunez is done. He's not big on him. But Chiesa never got those minutes that even Nunez got. You know what I mean?
But those minutes weren't prevalent. If you look, Nunez goes 3 consecutive matches without getting his ass off the bench. The guy literally went down to playing like 14 total players. He basically played the 3 attackers and then would send Nunez in if Jota wasn't fit. Like, he was basically Gakpo, Diaz, Mo, you guys take it to the end. And then with 4 matches left, it was, okay, we'll throw some guys out and give them some minutes. And nobody looked great. Harvey didn't look great. Nobody looked great in those last few minutes because they were all disconnected. I don't think that there is a world where you can defend what Chiesa had last year outside of the manager said until December, he wasn't fit. By January, they were out of every cup competition. And by February, they got knocked out of the Champions League. There weren't that many matches for a manager who already admitted I didn't rotate enough. So I'm not saying he stays and becomes a world beater. I just think that you're not going to get the fee you want for him. If he does anything for you, first half of the year, Maybe you can loan, hell, keep him through AFCON and then send him out in January on loan if you haven't found his role in this side. Like, I just think it makes too much sense to keep him for the first half of the season. I think if you loan him out to an Italian club, you barely get back your fee. If you sell him eventually to an Italian club, you can probably make a few quid on him. And I think that's what the goal is. There also isn't a huge market for him right now. And I don't think this club is about to sell anyone. And I know you don't want to talk about Nunez, but if these offers don't get to 60 million, 50, 60 million for Nunez, they're not going to sell him when guys like Manweki are going for 55 million because they think he's better than that. They genuinely believe he's honestly, better than that.
Yeah, but that's like a Arsenal being fleeced again because Arteta is very stubborn. I don't want to get into the Arsenal things, but I think that's way overvalue. I think everybody can agree that Madueke is not worth that.
Alanga for 55 million to Newcastle? I mean, this is the price right now in the Premier League.
Yeah, but I mean, would you say Elanga is a lot better than, for example, Madueke? Like I said, I didn't really want to get into this conversation. To be honest.
Maybe. My point is that unless a Premier League team with Premier League money steps up, or Darwin agrees to go to Saudi, I don't think Liverpool gets the price they want, and I don't think they're going to settle and like send him out on loan for a year with an option to buy and then string it along. I think they'd rather the guy sit on their bench and possibly come in and score 90-plus minute winners. Like, I don't think he'll stay, but I think they need to. I think they are very, very happy yesterday's performance went the way that it did because his underlying numbers were great. His dribbles were great. His pressing was good. He scored a goal. He created one with the dummy. And he was all over the pitch in a positive way. I think that's what you wanted out of Nunez to start this preseason, in my opinion. And it might help his value. I just don't know where he gets sold to. And that's the biggest problem.
I feel like now that this freaking tournament is over as well, the dominoes will start falling. And I think we'll find out if there's a market in the next 7 to 10 days. Once some of these big names like being talked about, Ekitike and all these guys like go somewhere, now it will come to this next, because I feel like he's in the next tier of like, not targets or like available guys and stuff like that. Real quick, as we run out of time, give me one disappointment, Bickler, that you saw. It's kind of hard to.
It almost feels unfair, but it has to be Robbo. He was atrocious. It was the worst match I've ever seen from him. I mean, it was really ugly. And I think the thing that concerns me is if you're going into a match like this with this emotion and, obviously this huge dark cloud over this moment, you can expect the mental mistakes, but the things that I was seeing was just a physical degeneration of like qualities from him. Like the ability to just not get back, on stuff or to overrun things. Those type of things are just very alarming. And I think speak more to like physical limitations or like sort of regression. And that's my concern.
My thing with Robo was, and probably performance wise, because as I, think of other people who played, I don't think there were a lot of like disappointments otherwise. I think it's slightly unfair on him because, like you said, he was playing out of position. And I felt like some of the mistakes are of a left back trying to play center back. Like he's trying to be over physical, knowing he's a left back playing center back. Like the one that goes over his head because he's too worried about bodying up the striker that the ball just goes over him.
Taking two steps back.
Yeah, been there, done that. That's basically saying like, this dude is big. I got to be physical. It's like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. I got to watch the ball too. And then, the ball goes. And that's when the speed thing comes up though, where he is not the one to kind of catch up at the end. But how about you, Gally? 15 words or less.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Robertson. I don't want to do it. Maybe it was the fact that Freddie Woodman looks way too much like a third goalkeeper, and I never want to see him play for LFC ever again. That made me nervous. Actually, I'll say it. It wasn't even one player. It was the resounding fact that we are still weak on set pieces, even against a weakened side. If I had a real disappointment in a player, isn't that Frimpong didn't play well. It's that I didn't get to see what Frimpong does well because they played so deep the entire second half. It was almost like they weren't playing to his side. There was that one time you saw the crazy recovery speed back, and you were like,
dude,
"Whoa, man, that dude is fast."
It looked like a glitch on FIFA. Like, what are you pressing to do that? Like, he just like.
Yeah, if I genuinely thought the dude might go back in time. Like, next thing you know, he's still playing at Leverkusen, and like Michael J. Fox is playing guitar. He was that fast. It honestly. So I'm excited for Frimpong, but maybe I was a little disappointed I didn't see it. My biggest disappointment was that Verts didn't get a jersey because they don't want anyone to know what stupid number he's going to wear.
I thought they announced this too, didn't they?
Well,
the temporary
They
one?
announced he's going to be 55 until number 7's available later this summer.
Basically, yeah. I guess
or
the
9.
thing is a good point, because I thought about that, especially in the second half. But then I go back to Bickler, your center backs for Nello and Robo, and they're the ones I talked about. I mean, he's a good kid, but I just don't think he is ever going to be that next step. And when we talk about age and stuff like that, but we had some other center backs come in and actually show their size. I just don't think that kid is really up to it. I know he's like really hyped, but anytime I watched him, and I think we saw it again, you see that in the goal too, it's him mistiming it and stuff. I kind of felt, if you have, I don't know, like Konate and Van Dijk in there, a lot of those balls are not making it past, or at least being challenged, kind of a thing. But before we go, let's talk about, I don't even know if there's enough to talk about the transfer rumor of Mateta, because I'm not personally buying it. And you guys had like a long chat about it on Discord. So I don't want to relive those moments. But Gally, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense anyways, age-wise, style-wise, and stuff like that. But as things are, or have you seen anything this weekend that you were like, you talked about Nunez and stuff like that. You're like, hey, this is what this team ultimately needs. I found it difficult because there's no Wirtz, there's no McAllister. There's so many not there.
They're missing the pieces. We don't know what the shift is going to be like in the formations. I do think Mateta could do a job in a side where maybe he's like your second striker and he's your guy you bring in. I don't want to say this, but he's the guy you bring in late when you need a goal. So
he is the guy that you were basically making dance earlier.
Yes, I think in a perfect world, he takes that order. He's got 2 years remaining on his contract. He just signed a deal not too long ago. It pays him good money, so you're going to have to pay good money to get him out of it. He's 28 years old to start next season, and we don't want to give a guy who has proven he can do it at Liverpool money at 28 years old for a new contract in Diaz. It just seems like an absolute agent starter. I don't believe they ever met with him. I honestly believe there is 0.0 in this, which is also why I didn't see it from Ornstein, Romano, or any of the hacks. I just saw it from a bunch of aggregators who just wanted a story.
But with the Ikitika stuff and all that going on, Bickler, do you see, is that trying to increase his price? Is there truth to that? If there is truth to that, would Isak be available? Would Gordon be available? This is why I'm talking about, the dominoes should be falling in the next, 4 or 5 days over here. I almost felt like the tournament being over, everybody being in camp now, this is when you got to start pulling the trigger. But do you see, how much stock do you put into overall those?
I don't put hardly any stock into that particular rumor. I think any striker with an agent that has a pulse is positioning right now, because they know once a domino goes, the market is in for business. Mateta thing, I actually like Mateta probably more than most. The thing that I don't like about Mateta is that, I just think tactically he's a square peg. He's a throwback number 9, which I don't think Slot is really going to look for in this system. He's a goal scorer. Too much I think it's too much shades of Benteke for me to be comfortable 100%. With that, right? But he's a big bodied guy that can strike the ball. He's got power. He's got decent pace for a guy his size. To me, he's an old school 9. I just can't see us pulling a trigger on that.
That's my thing. I just feel like, he's the pain in our ass, or a guy like that would be difficult when he plays against us on the counter and stuff like that. but I don't know how effective he will be against like a playing, like when we play Burnley at home, and if they're doing low block or something like that, and we're trying, and like he's just lost between 6 other guys in the box and not able to do anything.
I also don't think that you're going to get him from Palace for what you would want to pay a guy that comes off the bench to do that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, what you're saying, Gally. Like, if you basically, that's why I said that, like, you gave him the role that you were going to give Dan's, and why would you spend 40, 50 million to give that role to somebody?
Yeah, he's a guy that peels off a defender and gets a game-winning header at the back post, but he's not a guy that's going to link up play with Verts and Mo Salah and cute little triangles and dance around the box and then unlock a defense or make something happen. I've also seen him score some worldies. I think he's really, really good. But I mean, I don't understand. What I don't believe is, or what I do believe is these reports on Ekitike these are reports from big journalists, both in Germany and in England. And they tried to sign the player twice before. And I said all along, if somebody goes in that surprises you for Ekitike, it will be Newcastle. And I'm not surprised that they're in for him. I am surprised so many people are taking the cheese and actually think that Newcastle is going to become the first ball-playing football club in Europe right now, big club that's going to play with 2 strikers and play like a 4-4-2, like it's 1985. I'm sorry, people. And they're not paying 90 million for a backup. I'm not saying he's coming to Liverpool, but all this smoke that they're going to keep him. Like, Eddie Howe is a guy who believes in his principles the way Jurgen Klopp believed in his principles, like to the point where it hurt Newcastle at the beginning because he wanted them to get away from their back 3 that Benitez played and move to the back 4 system that really hurt them at the beginning. Had Brian Shelton saying he couldn't coach a team that could defend, then had the best defense in the Premier League for a year. But they need to buy 3 more players. How do they do that and buy a $90 million striker who's 22 years old?
And I don't see Newcastle having like 250 or $225 million filling their 4-4-2's fronts over there. It just does not sound like it's like a fantasy team where like you can't just spend all the money on running backs. You need some other stuff too, kind of a deal. But that's what we mean by dominoes, Dara. Because if they do sign Ekitike, for example, or that deal is almost pending on something else happening, then Isak would go. If Isak goes, the other guy would go there. All these guys, once they start moving, I think it's going to kind of like gain speed. It happens every freaking off season. It's like, who's going to blink and sign first and tell the world this is the going rates?
If Osimhen were to decide to go to Saudi, I could absolutely see Galatasaray sending a ton of money to Liverpool to try to get Darwin Núñez.
Yes.
Because you have a number 1 signing, and when you find out you can't get him, you move down the list. But sometimes you just wait. It's like the girl you want to ask out to the prom, you want to ask out on a date, and you're like, well, I'm going to hold this one out. And then you find out she's going with your best friend. And you're like, all right, it's the girl in study that talks to me. Damn it. But like, that's just natural life. See, Sir Z, I found new metaphors and they worked.
Reminds me, we should start a segment of this show just called Just Nonsense.
Just nonsense. Well, that would be the entire show. We should do a segment that says not nonsense and just keep it short and sweet. So
Dar would hate it.
They do great pizza. I don't know about great. Decent, I guess, for what it is, I would say.
2 o'clock in the morning. It's great when the other pizza places close at 1. Tell you that right now.
They got that going for them over there. I don't understand how the domino effect doesn't mean anything. I just don't understand that. There's a saying because it does mean something, but I mean, and this is exactly why. But yeah, I'm not gonna go into the explaining. But do I have ties to Galatasaray or Fenerbahçe?
Can you see the sign behind him?
Yeah, this gentleman right here is my grandfather, and he's one of the all-time best players in Fenerbahçe history back in the day. So yeah, he's like, he's in the museum and stuff like that. He has like a whole section and all that kind of stuff. So yes, I am heavily into Fenerbahçe.
Don't ever hop on a pod and wear something like, I don't know, like a Besiktas jersey or anything like that.
No, some assholes will do that. Some assholes have done that. It didn't
go over well.
Yeah, so I do not recommend anybody. If you do show up to New York wearing that thing, I swear you will have to do it. You will have to do the podcast proper. So that's
I'll end up being something that Dara is investigating.
But yeah, we'll talk about that more. Obviously, it was kind of like a crazy last week to 2 weeks over here. But obviously, the podathon is still on. 4 weeks from now, I believe, correct? 4 weeks from yesterday, I think, ultimately. So we are gearing up for that. There'll be more news. So do check out social media. And for everybody in the audience, I'm sure you might be interested. Even if you're not interested, your local supporter club might be interested. You might know a business owner that might be interested in sponsoring anywhere from $100 to $500 based on their budgets and how much they want to donate and stuff like that. That is correct. That is the man, my grandfather. Now Deluded.
Well done, Deluded. You are the winner for tonight. He got trivia right. You didn't even have to use this guy, and
that
he
was
got
pretty impressive. Like, did you do like a reverse Google search or something like that? That is pretty much, that is pretty impressive, I have to say. But yes, Esat Kanar is his name. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, basically. That's why the last names are not matching. But yeah, Esat Kanar is his name. Kicking ass of Galatasaray was his game. He's actually the guy who has played the most derby games between Fenerbahce and Galatasaray to all time, and kicked ass in most of them. But we'll wrap up today. Like I say, as I was saying, please do pass the information and get us more sponsors. See, ChatGPT knows everything. But yeah, do get us at ChatGPT, who will sponsor an hour, Steve, and let us know. But yes, we'll talk more about it throughout the week. So please do follow our socials if you have not done so already. And have an excellent week, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.